The claims that I will be responding to are skateboarding and vandalism are independent of each other, and more danger would come from banning than letting it stay legal. The secondary claims that I will be covering is vandalism associates itself with excitement, and skateboarding programs prove stereotypes wrong, and more injuries caused by reliability on homemade skateboards. In my opponent's speech, he stated that his claim was prohibiting the negative image of skateboarders will engage more negative effects towards society, but yet his entire speech is directed towards the negative effects of the skateboarding community. My response to the secondary claim is, with lack of to the claim skateboarding and vandalism are independent of each other, is with lack of evidence there are insufficient signs to reach conclusions with the sweeping generalization that all vandalism are troublemakers are done by troublemakers and none are skateboarders. His source, Savannah Turk, is an inadequate source because she is not an expert in the field. She is merely a student writer for the University of Utah. The reasoning is, I would like to know who qualifies as troublemakers, because he did not define it specifically. And Shepard Fairey, widely known for his graffiti and specifically his Barack Obama Hope poster, he is the founder of Obey, and he emerged from the skateboarding scene. He is a graffiti artist. With the lack of clarity, I'm unsure of your definition of prohibiting. If by prohibiting you mean banning the activity of skateboarding on private property, then it is prohibited for the health and safety of both the surrounding areas of the skateboarder and themselves, such as the prohibition of skateboarding on concrete or downhill slopes, and to keep the surrounding land maintained. For example, during the first quarter of the school year, a student was involved in an accident on a skateboard coming down the hill located near Building 17. The student put both herself and others in danger, and she also bruised herself pretty badly. My response to Claim 3 is, your last claim only particularly affects skateboarders, therefore it is irrelevant to any audience member who is in fact not a skateboarder or fan of skateboarding. As I stated before, I am unsure of your definition of prohibition. Therefore, I will draw my own and say that prohibiting the activity of skateboarding on certain grounds will not cause more injuries or overcrowded prisons. It will cause the migration of teens and skateboarders to areas that prohibit skateboarding and possibly an increase in teething.
All right. You identify the advocate's claims and the secondary claims pretty clearly. It sounds like you're going to follow that as a structure. And I thought that you did okay on the first and the third point. I think the middle point got a little bit lost and buried in the context of your argument. There's not any specific reference to the evidence that the advocate used in supporting their points. You recap the advocate's claims pretty well. I think you point out that there is some question about what exactly is meant by the idea of prohibition. Are there laws in place? Are there particular populations populations that are subject to these prohibitions? What is, where is this going to be an issue? I think that you could press a little bit harder by asking, for instance, for any information in places where it is prohibited that shows that they have had the kinds of problems that the advocate's talking about on that third claim. On the first claim, you basically challenge a lack of evidence and the link to vandalism. You know what? I don't remember what the advocate's evidence said exactly. I think that you've got a good question here about this idea about it being troublemakers. You do have an attack on the one source as not being expert enough, and I thought that was an okay argument on that point. It would be stronger if you had, for instance, some authority who does research skateboarding, vandalism, and other things that are affiliated with youth crime, for example, who could talk about the connection between skateboarding and vandalism and see if, in fact, the causality is in that direction. That would have then put the point a little bit more in contrast. As it was, I think it was an okay press on that piece of information, but it wasn't necessarily a strong argument on that point. The one counterexample that you have is Shepard Fairley, who's a pretty well-known figure, and we know that, and you say he started as a skateboarder. I'm going, okay, but what crimes has he committed? What was so bad about his graffiti? He's an artist, isn't he? Why should we be worried about this sort of thing? I think that if you could suggest, for example, that his actions and behaviors have inspired others to deface public property, to engage in messages that are socially inappropriate or dangerous or hazardous or problematic, I think that would maybe be a little bit more convincing. The argument about what prohibition refers to, this comes up both on this next point and on the last point, and I think you've got a legitimate press on that, but you don't get very far with it. You do make a reference to a student who was injured on campus. I think we ought to get a source citation on that, although it's a pretty good illustration. It's not hard to find examples of people who have injured themselves skateboarding. What would be nice would be to find some other examples of people who have been injured by skateboarders to show that there is, in fact, some potential danger there. All right, thank you.